The dust kicked up beneath Adam Xavier's boots as he dismounted his chestnut mare outside the general store in San Jose, California. The late afternoon sun of July 1876, casting long shadows across the dirt road. He had ridden 3 days straight from Sacramento with nothing but hardtack and jerky in his saddlebag, and his stomach growled something fierce as he tied the reins to the hitching post. But when he patted his vest pocket, the reality of his situation hit him square in the chest. $2.30. That was all that remained of his last cattle drive wages, and he still had to make it to his brother's ranch another 50 miles south. Inside the store, the smell of fresh bread nearly knocked him sideways. Mrs. Henderson had just pulled a batch from the oven, and the golden loaves sat cooling on the counter, their crusts crackling in the warm air. Adam's mouth watered as he counted out the coins in his palm, calculating whether he could afford even one small loaf and still have enough for grain for his horse. "That will be 15 cents for the bread," Mrs. Henderson said. Her round face creased with concern as she noticed his hesitation. "You look like you have not eaten in days, son." Adam managed a tired smile and handed over the coins, taking the still warm loaf wrapped in brown paper. The weight of it in his hands felt like a treasure, and he was already planning how he would ration it over the next 2 days when he stepped back out into the dusty street. That was when he saw her. The woman sat on the wooden steps of the abandoned feed store across the way, her dark hair falling in tangled waves around a face that might have been beautiful if not for the hollow look in her eyes and the sharp angles of her cheekbones pressing against pale skin. Her dress, once a respectable calico print, was torn at the hem and covered in trail dust. She could not have been more than 20 years old, maybe younger, and she was staring at the bread in his hands with an expression that made Adam's chest tighten. He had seen that look before. During the war, when supplies ran low and soldiers went days without rations. During the hard winter of '73 when the cattle froze and families starved. It was the look of someone who had not eaten in far too long. Adam changed direction without thinking, his boots carrying him across the street toward the woman. As he approached, she seemed to shrink back against the weathered boards, her eyes darting to his face with something between hope and fear. "Evening, miss," Adam said, keeping his voice gentle as he stopped a respectful distance away. "This bread is still warm from the oven. Would you do me the honor of sharing it with me?" The woman's throat worked as she swallowed, and her gaze flickered from the bread to his face and back again. "I have no money to pay you," she said, her voice hoarse and cracking slightly. The way she formed her words suggested education, refinement even, which made her current state all the more troubling. "I am not selling it," Adam replied. He tore the loaf in half, the steam rising from the soft interior, and held out the larger portion to her. "Just offering." For a moment she did not move, and Adam wondered if pride would win out over hunger. Then her hand reached out, trembling slightly, and took the bread from him. She did not tear into it like he expected. Instead, she brought it to her nose and inhaled deeply, her eyes closing as if the smell alone could sustain her. "Thank you," she whispered. Then she took a small, careful bite, chewing slowly as if trying to make it last. When she swallowed, tears began streaming down her cheeks, cutting clean tracks through the dust on her face. Adam sat down on the step beside her, maintaining a proper distance, and bit into his own half of the bread. It was good, better than anything he had tasted in weeks, but watching her eat made his portion seem almost unnecessary. They sat in silence for several minutes, the sounds of San Jose continuing around them. A wagon rattled past. Someone shouted from the saloon down the street. A dog barked in the distance. "Kindness tastes sweeter than food," the woman said suddenly, her voice stronger now. She had finished her half of the bread and was brushing crumbs from her lap with hands that still shook slightly. My mother used to say that. I never understood what she meant until just now. Adam turned to look at her properly. With some food in her belly, color was already returning to her cheeks, and he could see that she was indeed beautiful beneath the grime and exhaustion. Her eyes were an unusual shade of green, like new grass after spring rain, and despite everything she had clearly endured, there was an intelligence and dignity in the way she held herself. "When did you last eat?" he asked. She looked down at her hands. 3 days ago, maybe 4. I lost track after a while. What brings you to San Jose in such a state, if you do not mind my asking? Adam knew he was prying, but something about this woman called to him in a way he could not explain. He wanted to know her story, wanted to understand how someone who spoke with such refinement had ended up starving on the streets. The woman was quiet for a long moment, and Adam thought she might not answer. Then she sighed, a sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her. "My name is Victoria Olivia," she said. "I came from Philadelphia with my father 6 months ago. He had purchased land near Sacramento, sight unseen, believing it would make our fortune. Instead, we found a worthless patch of rock and scrub that would not grow anything if you prayed over it daily." Adam nodded, having heard similar stories before. The years following the war had seen countless families head west on promises of prosperity that rarely materialized. "My father died in April," Victoria continued, her voice steady despite the pain evident in her eyes. "Pneumonia. Before he passed, he made me promise I would go to his cousin in Los Angeles. He gave me the money for the stagecoach, made me swear I would not stay in Sacramento alone." She paused, her hands clenching in her lap. "I made it as far as San Jose before the stage was robbed 2 days ago. They took everything. My bag, my money, even my mother's locket that I wore around my neck." The anger that rose in Adam's chest was swift and hot. He had no patience for men who preyed on the innocent and helpless. "Did the sheriff go after them?" Victoria gave a bitter laugh. "The sheriff said there was nothing he could do. Stage robberies happen all the time," he said. "I should consider myself lucky they did not hurt anyone." She turned to look at Adam fully for the first time, her green eyes searching his face. "I have been trying to find work for 2 days, but no one wants to hire a woman with no references and no place to stay. I spent my first night in the church, but Reverend Thomas said he could not let me stay longer without causing talk. Last night I slept behind this building." Adam felt something shift inside him as he looked at Victoria Olivia. He recognized something in her that mirrored his own circumstances. Both of them were adrift, caught between one place and another, struggling to survive in a world that often showed little mercy. But where his situation was temporary, a few days of hunger before reaching the safety of his brother's ranch, hers was desperate and dangerous. "My name is Adam Xavier," he said, making a decision that felt both reckless and utterly right. "I am heading south to my brother's ranch near Santa Clara. It is not much out of the way to Los Angeles. If you are willing to ride with me, I can see you safely to your father's cousin." Victoria's eyes widened. "I could not possibly impose on you like that. You have already been kinder to me than I had any right to expect." "It is not an imposition," Adam insisted. "I have a horse, supplies, and I know the roads. You have a destination and nothing to get you there. It seems to me we can help each other out." "But what would people think?" Victoria asked, and even in her desperate state, Adam appreciated that she considered propriety. It spoke to the kind of woman she was. "People will think what they will regardless," Adam said honestly. "But if it concerns you, we can stop by Reverend Thomas and ask him to write a letter of introduction. That way, when we reach your father's cousin, you will have something to show that our arrangement was respectable." Victoria studied him for a long moment, and Adam bore her scrutiny without flinching. He knew what she saw. A weathered cowboy with sun-darkened skin and calloused hands, his clothes dusty from the trail but clean and well-mended. His face was honest, his manner straightforward. He was 26 years old and had spent most of his adult life working ranches from Texas to California. He was no saint, but he was no scoundrel either. "Why would you do this?" Victoria finally asked. "You do not know me. For all you know, I could be lying about everything." Adam considered the question seriously. "I suppose because someone once helped me when I had nothing and I have never forgotten it, and because leaving you here, knowing what I know, would sit heavy on my conscience for the rest of my days." He stood and offered her his hand. "What do you say, Miss Olivia? Will you let me help you?" Victoria looked at his outstretched hand, then up at his face. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her because she reached out and placed her hand in his. Her palm was rough with blisters and cuts, evidence of recent hard labor or hard living. Adam helped her to her feet, noting how she swayed slightly from weakness. "I say yes," Victoria said, her voice firm despite her physical frailty. "And I say thank you, Adam Xavier. I will find a way to repay your kindness someday." "No need," Adam replied. "Just promise me you will eat properly and get yourself to safety. That will be payment enough." They walked together back across the street to where Adam's horse waited patiently. The mare, a good-natured animal named Copper for the color of her coat, turned her head to regard Victoria with calm brown eyes. Adam quickly assessed his supplies, calculating what he would need to purchase for 2 people making the journey south. "Wait here," he told Victoria. "I need to get a few things from the store." Inside, Mrs. Henderson looked up from where she was sweeping the floor. "Back already? Was the bread not to your liking?" "The bread was perfect," Adam assured her, "but I find myself in need of supplies for 2. Another loaf if you have one, some cheese, dried fruit, and whatever else you might recommend for travel rations." Mrs. Henderson's eyebrows rose as she glanced out the window at Victoria, still standing beside Copper. "That poor girl has been wandering around town for 2 days looking like death warmed over. Is she a relation of yours, a fellow traveler in need of assistance?" Adam said carefully. "I am escorting her to family in Los Angeles." The older woman's expression softened. "Then you will need more than what you asked for. Hold on." She bustled around the store, gathering items with efficient movements. Within minutes, she had assembled a considerable pile on the counter. 2 loaves of bread, a wheel of hard cheese, dried apples and apricots, salted beef, a tin of crackers, and 2 canteens. Adam's heart sank as he calculated the cost. "Mrs. Henderson, I appreciate your generosity, but my funds are limited." The storekeeper waved her hand dismissively. "You gave that girl your own food when you clearly needed it yourself. That tells me what kind of man you are. This lot will cost you $1, and I will hear no arguments." "Madam, that is less than the cost of the bread alone," Adam protested. $1, Mrs. Henderson repeated firmly. "And you tell that girl that she is welcome to come inside and wash up at the pump out back if she likes. I can probably find a cleaner dress for her too. Lord knows, I have enough old things sitting in the storeroom that my daughters left behind." Adam felt a lump form in his throat at the unexpected generosity. "You are a good woman, Mrs. Henderson. Thank you." "Go fetch her," the storekeeper said, already heading toward the back room. "And you can fill those canteens at the pump while she is getting cleaned up." Adam returned to Victoria and relayed Mrs. Henderson's offer. The relief and gratitude on Victoria's face was almost painful to see. She hurried inside, and Adam busied himself with the practical tasks of filling canteens and reorganizing his saddlebags to accommodate the additional supplies. Copper stood placidly through it all, occasionally nosing at his shoulder as if to ask what all the fuss was about. Nearly an hour passed before Victoria emerged from the general store, and Adam barely recognized her. Her dark hair, now clean and braided, shone in the late afternoon sun. The dress Mrs. Henderson had found was a simple blue cotton that fit reasonably well, and though Victoria was still too thin, she no longer looked like someone on the verge of collapse. She carried a small bundle that Adam assumed contained her old dress and possibly other items Mrs. Henderson had pressed upon her. "I feel almost human again," Victoria said, and there was a tentative smile on her face that transformed her features. "Mrs. Henderson insisted I take soap and a comb, and she gave me a blanket as well. She said she could not in good conscience send me off without proper supplies." "She is a good soul," Adam agreed. He finished tying down the saddlebags and turned to face Victoria. "Now, about our travel arrangements. Copper is a strong horse, but carrying 2 riders plus supplies will slow us considerably. I had planned to reach my brother's ranch by tomorrow evening, but with the 2 of us, it might take an extra day." "I have ridden before," Victoria said quickly. "Back in Philadelphia, my father kept horses. But I understand if I will be a burden. Perhaps I could walk alongside for part of the journey." Adam shook his head. "You are recovering from days without proper food. Riding will be hard enough on you without adding unnecessary walking. We will take it slow and steady, and we will be fine." He hesitated, then added, "I should mention that we will need to camp out tonight. My brother's ranch is still 30 miles off, and we cannot make that before dark even if we left right now." He watched Victoria's face carefully, giving her the opportunity to change her mind about the arrangement. Camping alone with a man she had just met was no small thing, regardless of Reverend Thomas's potential letter of introduction. But Victoria simply nodded, her expression resolute. "I trust you, Adam Xavier," she said simply. "You have shown me nothing but kindness and respect. I am not afraid." Those words settled something in Adam's chest, some tension he had not even realized he was carrying. He helped Victoria into the saddle first, then swung up behind her. Copper shifted to adjust to the extra weight, but made no complaint. Victoria sat stiffly at first, clearly conscious of Adam's proximity behind her. But as they started moving, she seemed to relax slightly. Before leaving town, Adam insisted on stopping at the church. Reverend Thomas, a thin man with wire-rimmed spectacles and a perpetually worried expression, listened to Adam's explanation and readily agreed to write the requested letter. He added a note about Victoria's character during her brief stay at the church, praising her modesty and devotion. The letter would not solve all potential problems, but it was better than nothing. They left San Jose as the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Adam guided Copper onto the southward trail, keeping to a steady but unhurried pace. The rhythm of the horse's gait gradually eased the awkwardness between them, and after a while Victoria began to speak. "Tell me about your brother," she said. "What kind of ranch does he run?" Adam was grateful for the conversation. Silence between strangers could be either companionable or uncomfortable, and he much preferred talk to tension. "His name is Andrew. He is 3 years older than me and considerably wiser, or so he likes to remind me. He runs cattle mostly, with some horses on the side. His wife, Margaret, keeps chickens and a vegetable garden that is the envy of the county. They have 2 children, both boys, and are expecting a third any day now." "They sound like a lovely family," Victoria said wistfully. "Do you live with them, on and off?" Adam admitted. I have been working cattle drives for the past few years, hiring on with different outfits as the seasons dictate. Between drives, I help Andrew with his herd. It is a rootless kind of life, but it suits me well enough. Have you never wanted to settle down yourself? Victoria asked. Start your own ranch, have a family? Adam was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. I suppose I have always figured there would be time for that later. After I save enough money, after I find the right piece of land, after everything falls into place the way it is supposed to. But lately, I have been wondering if I am just making excuses. My brother is always after me to find a good woman and stop wandering, but it is hard to build a life when you are always on the move. My father used to say that life is what happens while you are busy making plans, Victoria said softly. He spent years planning our move west, saving money, researching land purchases. And in the end, we had barely 6 months together in California before he was gone. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we had just stayed in Philadelphia. He would probably still be alive. Adam heard the guilt in her voice and responded carefully. You cannot think like that. Your father made his choices based on what he thought was best. The fact that things did not work out as planned does not mean the choice was wrong. Sometimes life just deals you a bad hand, and all you can do is play it the best you can. I suppose, Victoria said, though she did not sound entirely convinced. They rode in silence for a while, the landscape gradually transitioning from the scattered buildings of San Jose's outskirts to open country. Rolling hills dotted with oak trees stretched in every direction, golden grass rippling in the breeze. In the distance, the Santa Cruz Mountains created a dark purple line against the sky. As the light began to fade, Adam started looking for a suitable place to make camp. He found a spot near a small creek, sheltered by a grove of oak trees that would provide some privacy and protection from the wind. He helped Victoria down from the saddle, noting how she moved stiffly after hours of riding. Stretch your legs and walk around a bit, he advised. Otherwise, you will be sore as blazes tomorrow. While Victoria followed his suggestion, walking slowly along the creek bank, Adam unsaddled Copper and set about making camp. He had done this hundreds of times before, and his hands moved through the familiar motions with practiced efficiency. He gathered wood for a fire, laid out the bedrolls at a respectful distance from each other, and fetched water from the creek. By the time darkness had fully settled over the land, Adam had a small fire crackling cheerfully and water heating for coffee. Victoria returned from her walk and settled on a fallen log near the fire, watching him work with curious eyes. You make it look easy, she observed. Years of practice, Adam replied, measuring coffee grounds into the pot. You pick up certain skills when you spend half your life sleeping under the stars. I have never camped outside before, Victoria admitted. Back in Philadelphia, I lived in a house with 4 floors and 12 rooms. We had servants and dinner parties and all the trappings of civilized society. And then, after we moved west, we lived in a farmhouse that was falling apart, trying to grow crops in soil that might as well have been concrete. The change was jarring, to say the least. Adam heard the unspoken story in her words. The fall from comfort to hardship, the loss not just of her father, but of an entire way of life. He pulled out the bread and cheese Mrs. Henderson had provided and cut generous portions for both of them. Life in the West takes some adjustment, he acknowledged, handing Victoria her share of the food. It is not easy, especially for folks coming from back east with certain expectations. But there is a freedom here too, if you are willing to embrace it. Out here, who you are matters more than who your family was or how much money you have. Is that why you prefer driving cattle to settling down? Victoria asked perceptively. The freedom of it. Adam paused, considering the question seriously. Maybe partly. But I think it is more that I have not found a good enough reason to give up that freedom yet. My brother tells me that when I meet the right woman, I will understand. He says there is nothing in the world worth more than coming home to someone who loves you at the end of a long day. Victoria smiled slightly. Your brother sounds like a romantic. He is, Adam agreed with a chuckle. Shameless about it too. You should see him with Margaret. After 8 years of marriage, he still looks at her like she hung the moon. That must be nice, Victoria said wistfully. My parents had that kind of love. Even when everything was falling apart, even when my father was dying, they never stopped looking at each other that way. I used to think I would find that for myself someday, but now I am not so sure. After everything that has happened, the idea of trusting someone enough to love them feels almost impossible. Adam understood what she meant. Life had a way of making you cautious, of building walls around your heart to protect it from further damage. But he also believed that those walls could come down for the right person. Give it time, he said gently. You have been through more than most people endure in a lifetime. It is natural to feel guarded. But someday, when you least expect it, someone will come along who makes you want to take that risk again. They ate in companionable silence, the crackle of the fire and the chirping of crickets providing a soothing backdrop. The coffee finished brewing, and Adam poured them each a cup. Victoria wrapped her hands around the warm tin gratefully, inhaling the steam. This is going to sound strange, she said after a while, but this is the most at peace I have felt in months. Sitting here by the fire with food in my stomach and someone to talk to. It feels almost normal, even though nothing about this situation is normal. I do not think it is strange, Adam replied. Sometimes the simplest moments are the most meaningful, and sometimes kindness from a stranger means more than grand gestures from people we know. Victoria looked at him over the rim of her coffee cup, her green eyes reflecting the firelight. Kindness tastes sweeter than food, she repeated softly. I meant what I said earlier. Your kindness today probably saved my life. I do not know how I will ever thank you properly. You do not need to thank me, Adam said, feeling uncomfortable with her gratitude. Anyone decent would have done the same. But they did not, Victoria pointed out. I spent 2 days in San Jose and dozens of people walked past me. They saw me sitting there, clearly in distress, and they all found reasons to look away. You were the only one who stopped, who offered help without expecting anything in return. That is not common decency, Adam. That is something special. Adam felt heat rise in his cheeks that had nothing to do with the fire. He was not used to such direct praise, especially from a woman as beautiful and well-spoken as Victoria. To cover his embarrassment, he stood and busied himself with checking on Copper, making sure the horse had adequate grazing and water. When he returned to the fire, Victoria had already settled into her bedroll, though her eyes were still open, watching the stars overhead. Adam added a few more pieces of wood to the fire and arranged his own bedroll on the opposite side of the flames, maintaining proper distance. Adam, Victoria's voice came softly through the darkness. Yes, I am glad it was you who found me today. Not just because you helped me, but because I like the kind of person you are. I feel safe with you, and after everything that has happened, that is no small thing. Adam's heart squeezed in his chest at her words. I am glad I found you too, Victoria. Get some rest now. We have a long ride tomorrow. Good night, Adam. Good night. Adam lay awake for a long time after Victoria's breathing had deepened into sleep, staring up at the vast expanse of stars overhead. Something had shifted inside him today, some fundamental change that he could not quite name. When he had offered Victoria that bread, He had been acting on instinct, on the simple human impulse to help someone in need. He had not expected anything in return, certainly not this strange feeling that was growing in his chest. He found himself thinking about Victoria's smile, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her parents, the grace with which she carried herself despite her circumstances. He thought about her courage in accepting his help, in trusting a stranger when she had every reason to be wary. And he thought about how natural it had felt to ride with her, to talk with her, to sit by the fire and share a meal. Andrew's words echoed in his mind. When you meet the right woman, you will understand. Could it really be that simple? Could one day, one act of kindness, one woman with green eyes and a grateful smile, be enough to make him reconsider everything he thought he wanted from life? Adam did not have answers to these questions, but as he finally drifted off to sleep, he found himself looking forward to the morning, to another day of riding south with Victoria beside him, to learning more about the woman who had walked into his life in such an unexpected way. The next day dawned clear and bright, the sky a brilliant blue that seemed to stretch on forever. Adam woke first, as was his habit, and rekindled the fire to make coffee and heat water for washing. Victoria emerged from her bedroll looking considerably better than she had the previous day, though she moved with the careful stiffness of someone not accustomed to sleeping on the ground. "Good morning," she said, offering him a shy smile. "I hope I did not snore too loudly." Adam laughed. "Not at all. How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected, actually. I was so exhausted that even the hard ground felt comfortable." She accepted the cup of coffee he offered and settled on the log where she had sat the night before. "What is the plan for today?" "We will ride to my brother's ranch first," Adam explained, cutting slices of bread and cheese for breakfast. "It is about 5 or 6 hours from here if we keep a steady pace. I need to let Andrew know where I am heading and possibly borrow some supplies for the longer journey to Los Angeles. If you are agreeable, we could stay the night there, give you a chance to sleep in a real bed and have a proper hot meal. Then we can head south the following morning." Victoria nodded. "That sounds wonderful, but I do not want to impose on your brother's hospitality. He is not expecting an extra guest. Andrew and Margaret always have room for one more," Adam assured her. "And Margaret will be thrilled to have another woman to talk to. She gets tired of being surrounded by men and boys all day." After breakfast, they packed up camp and set out once more, Copper carrying them steadily southward. The riding was easier today, both because Victoria's body was adjusting to the unfamiliar activity and because the tension between them had eased considerably. They talked as they rode, sharing stories about their lives. Victoria described her childhood in Philadelphia, painting pictures with her words of grand balls and theater performances, of libraries filled with books and Sunday dinners with extended family. But she also talked about the loneliness of that life, the way everything felt prescribed and predetermined, with no room for spontaneity or genuine emotion. "Everyone was so concerned with appearances," she explained. "Who you knew, where you went, what you wore." My mother spent hours each day on social obligations that she found tedious but necessary. And I was being groomed to do the same, to marry well and maintain the family's social standing. When my father announced we were moving west, I was terrified and excited in equal measure. Terrified of leaving everything I knew, but excited at the possibility of something different, something real. "Did you find it?" Adam asked. "That's something real." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "I found something, though I am not sure real is the word I would use. Difficult, certainly. Eye-opening, definitely. My father worked harder in those 6 months than he had in his entire life before, and I learned what it meant to truly struggle. We grew close in a way we had never been before. when social obligations and business concerns kept him away from home. So in that sense, yes, I suppose I found something real, but I also lost everything in the process. Maybe you have not lost it, Adam suggested. Maybe you have just changed it, transformed it into something different. You are not the same person you were in Philadelphia, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. No, Victoria agreed softly. I suppose it is not, though I will admit there are days when I would give almost anything for a hot bath and a soft bed. Adam chuckled. Well, Margaret has both at the ranch. She keeps the nicest house in the county, or so she claims. Andrew built her a copper tub that sits right in front of the fireplace. She says it is her most prized possession. They reached the ranch around mid-afternoon, the buildings appearing as welcome shapes on the horizon. Andrew's spread was modest but well-maintained, with a sturdy ranch house, a large barn, several corrals, and various outbuildings. Cattle grazed on the hillsides, and Adam could see horses in one of the nearer pastures. As they rode into the yard, Andrew emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. He was taller than Adam and broader through the shoulders, with the same dark hair but lighter eyes. His face lit up when he recognized his brother, then showed surprise when he noticed Victoria sitting in front of Adam. Well, this is unexpected, Andrew called out as Adam brought Copper to a halt. You were supposed to arrive yesterday, and you were definitely supposed to arrive alone. Adam dismounted and helped Victoria down before turning to face his brother. Things got complicated. Andrew, this is Victoria, Olivia. Victoria, my brother Andrew. Andrew's sharp eyes took in Victoria's too thin frame and the quality of her manners as she politely greeted him, and Adam could practically see his brother putting the pieces together. Before Andrew could ask questions, the front door of the house burst open and Margaret rushed out, her pregnant belly leading the way. Adam Xavier, where have you been? She demanded, then stopped short when she saw Victoria. Margaret was a pretty woman with auburn hair and a spattering of freckles across her nose, and she had the kind of direct, no-nonsense manner that Adam appreciated. Her eyes softened immediately as she took in Victoria's condition. Oh, you poor dear. You look half-starved. Come inside immediately. Andrew, bring their things. Before anyone could protest, Margaret had swept Victoria into the house, chattering about food and rest and how wonderful it was to have another woman to talk to. Andrew raised an eyebrow at Adam. Care to explain? Adam quickly related the events of the previous day, watching his brother's expression shift from surprise to approval. When he finished, Andrew clapped him on the shoulder. You did the right thing, Andrew said firmly. Though I imagine the ride from San Jose with a beautiful woman in your arms was not exactly a hardship. Andrew, Adam warned, but his brother just laughed. Come on, brother. I have eyes. That young lady is lovely, and unless I am very much mistaken, you are already half in love with her. I just met her yesterday, Adam protested, even as he felt heat rise in his face. So, I knew I was going to marry Margaret within 5 minutes of meeting her. Sometimes these things just happen fast. Andrew started walking toward the house, and Adam had no choice but to follow. How long are you planning to stay? Just overnight, if that is all right. I need to escort Victoria to Los Angeles to her father's cousin. After that, I will return and help you with whatever needs doing. Andrew stopped and turned to face him. Los Angeles is a 5-day ride from here, maybe 6 depending on the weather and the roads. You are talking about nearly 2 weeks round trip, possibly more. And you are doing this for a woman you just met. She has nowhere else to turn, Adam said quietly. Her father is dead, she has no money, and she needs to reach family. What would you have me do? Leave her to figure it out on her own? Of course not, Andrew said immediately. I am just trying to understand what is going on in that head of yours. This is not like you, Adam. You are always the first one to help someone in need, but this is different. This is personal. Adam could not deny it, so he said nothing. Andrew studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, then. Stay as long as you need tonight, and I will put together some supplies for your trip south. But Adam, be careful. I do not mean of bandits or bad weather. I mean of your heart. You are a good man, and that woman in there has been through hell. Make sure you both know what you are getting into before this goes any further. Nothing has happened, Adam insisted. I am just helping her, that is all. If you say so, Andrew replied, but his tone suggested he did not believe it for a minute. Inside the house, they found Margaret already bustling around the kitchen while Victoria sat at the large wooden table, looking somewhat overwhelmed. Two young boys, ages 5 and 7, peeked at the stranger from around the doorframe of the next room. James, Thomas, come say hello to Miss Olivia, Margaret called, and the boys reluctantly shuffled forward. They had their father's height and their mother's coloring, and they regarded Victoria with the open curiosity of children. Hello, Victoria said warmly, smiling at them. What fine young men you are. Thomas, the older one, puffed up at the compliment. Papa says I am going to be tall like him. James is going to be the short one. Am not, James protested, and Margaret intervened before an argument could develop. Boys, why not you show Miss Olivia your collection of interesting rocks? I am sure she would love to see them. The boys immediately perked up and began pulling Victoria toward their room, chattering excitedly about rocks and adventures and a frog they had found last week. Victoria allowed herself to be led away, glancing back at Margaret with an expression of amused helplessness. She is lovely, Margaret said as soon as Victoria was out of earshot, and she seems very sweet. Adam, you have to tell me everything. So Adam found himself recounting the story yet again, while Margaret prepared an enormous meal, clucking her tongue sympathetically and occasionally interjecting with comments about the cruelty of fate and the goodness of Adam's heart. By the time he finished, she was looking at him with undisguised approval. You are taking her all the way to Los Angeles, Margaret asked. It is the right thing to do, Adam said. It is the right thing to do if your intentions are honorable, Margaret corrected. That girl is vulnerable, Adam. She has lost everything and everyone. If you are just being kind, that is wonderful. But if there is more to it than that, you need to be honest with yourself and with her. Everyone keeps saying that, Adam muttered, but I have only known her for 1 day. I am not even sure what I feel beyond wanting to help her. Margaret gave him a knowing look. I think you know exactly what you feel. You are just afraid to admit it because it happened so fast and because the timing is complicated. Before Adam could respond, Victoria returned with a boy hanging on each arm, laughing at something Thomas had said. The sound of her laughter did something to Adam's chest, made something warm and bright unfold there. He watched her interact with his nephews, saw how natural and gentle she was with them, and he realized Margaret was right. He knew exactly what he was feeling. He was falling in love with Victoria Olivia. The realization should have terrified him. They had known each other barely 24 hours. She was on her way to Los Angeles to start a new life with family. He was a rootless cowboy with no home to offer and uncertain prospects. Everything about the situation argued against romantic feelings. And yet, dinner that evening was a lively affair, with the boys entertaining everyone with stories of life on the ranch, and Margaret pressing second and third helpings of food on Victoria, who ate with the appreciation of someone still making up for days of hunger. Adam found himself watching Victoria more than he should, noticing the way she laughed, the way she listened intently when others spoke, the way she met his eyes across the table and smiled. After dinner, Margaret insisted that Victoria take a bath, and Andrew shooed everyone out of the house so his wife could heat water and provide privacy. Adam and Andrew sat on the porch while the boys played in the yard, the evening air cooling pleasantly after the heat of the day. "So," Andrew said after a while, "are you going to tell me what is really going on?" "What do you mean?" Adam asked, though he knew perfectly well what his brother meant. "I mean the way you look at her, the way she looks at you. I mean the fact that you are about to ride nearly 500 miles round trip for a woman you claim to barely know." Andrew paused. "I also mean the way you have not stopped smiling since you got here, which is not something I have seen from you in years." Adam sighed and leaned back against the porch railing. "I do not know what to tell you, Andrew. Yes, I care about her. How could I not? She is brave and kind and intelligent, and she has been through more hardship than anyone should have to endure. When I look at her, I see someone worth knowing, worth protecting, worth—" He trailed off, unable to finish the thought. "Worth loving," Andrew supplied gently. "Maybe," Adam admitted, "but it is too soon to know for sure, and even if it is love, what am I supposed to do about it? She has a life to build in Los Angeles. I have nothing to offer her except more uncertainty." "You have yourself to offer," Andrew said firmly. "And that is not nothing, brother. You are a good man with a strong back and an honest heart. Any woman would be lucky to have you." "But would Victoria see it that way?" Adam wondered aloud. "She comes from wealth and refinement. She is only traveling with me because she has no other choice. Once she reaches her father's cousin, she will go back to the world she knows." "Why would she want to tie herself to a cowboy who lives out of a saddlebag?" "Maybe you should ask her," Andrew suggested. "Or better yet, maybe you should give her a reason to choose you. Show her what a life with you could look like. Show her that wealth and refinement are not the only things worth having." "You make it sound simple." "It is simple," Andrew insisted. "You love her or you do not. If you do, you fight for her. If you do not, you escort her to Los Angeles and wish her well. But either way, you need to be honest with yourself and with her about what you want." They sat in comfortable silence after that, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Inside, Adam could hear Margaret and Victoria talking, their voices drifting through the open windows. The sound of Victoria's laughter made him smile despite his tangled thoughts. Later that night, after the boys had been put to bed and Victoria had been shown to the small guest room, Adam lay in his bedroll in the barn and thought about everything Andrew had said. Could he really offer Victoria a life worth having? And more importantly, would she even want it? He knew that Los Angeles represented safety for her, the promise of family and stability after months of loss and uncertainty. Her father's cousin would presumably welcome her, provide for her, help her rebuild her life. What did Adam have that could compete with that? But then he thought about the way Victoria had looked at him by the campfire, the way she had said his kindness tasted sweeter than food. He thought about her smile and her courage, and the way something seemed to spark between them when their eyes met. Was it possible that she felt even a fraction of what he was feeling? Adam fell asleep with those questions running through his mind, and he dreamed of green eyes and dark hair, and a future he had never imagined for himself. The next morning, Margaret insisted on preparing a substantial breakfast and packing enough food to feed an army. She also quietly pressed a bundle of clothing into Victoria's hands, insisting that she could not possibly wear the same dress for days on end. Victoria protested, but Margaret would hear none of it. "You have given me the pleasure of female company and made my boys smile," Margaret said firmly. "That is payment enough for a few old dresses I was never going to wear again anyway." Andrew pulled Adam aside as they were preparing to leave. "I put together extra supplies for you," he said, gesturing to several bags near Copper. Food, ammunition, blankets, some money. The road to Los Angeles is not always safe, especially for two people traveling alone. Be smart and be careful. I will, Adam promised. He hesitated, then added, "Thank you, Andrew, for everything. For not judging, for helping, for the advice." "That is what family is for," Andrew replied, pulling Adam into a brief, hard embrace. "Now go. And Adam, whatever happens with Victoria, I want you to know I am proud of you. You are doing the right thing." The goodbye with Margaret was more emotional, with her hugging both Adam and Victoria and making them promise to stop by on their way back north. The boys extracted promises of presents from Los Angeles, and then Adam and Victoria were riding south again, Copper loaded down with supplies and the morning sun warm on their backs. They rode in silence for the first hour, both seemingly lost in thought. The landscape gradually changed as they traveled, the rolling hills giving way to flatter terrain dotted with scrub brush and occasional farms. The road was well-traveled but not crowded, and they passed other travelers infrequently. Finally, Victoria spoke. "Your family is wonderful," she said. "Margaret is so kind, and your brother clearly loves you very much. You are lucky to have them." "I know," Adam replied. "They mean the world to me. Andrew has always been there when I needed him, even when we were kids and he had every reason to resent me. And Margaret has been like a sister since the day he married her." "Do you think you will ever have what they have?" Victoria asked. "A home, a family, roots in one place." It was the question Adam had been asking himself since the previous night. "I used to think that kind of life was not for me," he said slowly. "I always figured I was too restless, too fond of moving around. But lately, I have been wondering if maybe I was just waiting for the right reason to settle down." He felt Victoria shift slightly in front of him, but she did not respond immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. What kind of reason would be right? Adam's heart was pounding, but he forced himself to answer honestly. "The kind of reason that makes everything else seem unimportant. The kind of reason that makes you want to build something permanent instead of just drifting from one place to another." "Like falling in love?" Victoria asked, and there was something in her tone that made Adam's breath catch. "Yes," he said, "like falling in love." They rode on, and Adam wondered if Victoria understood what he was trying to say, if she realized he was talking about her. The words felt too big and too soon to speak plainly, but he hoped she could read between the lines, could sense what he was feeling. As the sun climbed higher, they stopped to rest in the shade of a large oak tree. Adam helped Victoria down from the saddle and spread out a blanket while she stretched her legs. They ate some of the food Margaret had packed, cold chicken and biscuits and fresh fruit, washing it down with water from the canteen. "Adam," Victoria said suddenly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "When we reach Los Angeles, when you have delivered me safely to my father's cousin." She paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "What will you do then? Will you go back to your brother's ranch?" Adam studied her face, trying to understand what she was really asking. "I suppose I will. Unless you think you might need me to stay for a while, make sure you are settled properly." "Would you stay if I asked?" Victoria's green eyes were fixed on his face with an intensity that made his heart race. "Yes," Adam said without hesitation. "I would stay as long as you needed me." Victoria looked down at her hands, twisting them in her lap. "What if I needed you to stay a long time? What if I needed you to stay forever?" The world seemed to stop spinning. Adam reached out and gently lifted Victoria's chin until she was looking at him again. "Victoria, I need you to understand something. These past 2 days with you have been some of the best of my life. I know that probably sounds crazy given how short a time it has been, but it is the truth. When I look at you, I see something I never knew I was looking for. I see a future I never imagined for myself." Tears welled up in Victoria's eyes, but she was smiling. "I see that too," she whispered. "From the moment you offered me that bread, from the first kind words you spoke, I felt something shift inside me. I told myself I was just grateful, that I was confusing gratitude with something else. But last night at your brother's ranch, watching you with your family, seeing the man you are," she took a shaky breath, "I realized what I was feeling was not gratitude, it was love." Adam felt like his chest might burst. "You love me." "I do," Victoria said, the tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "I know it is too soon, and I know I have no right to burden you with my feelings when you have already done so much for me, but I cannot lie to you. I cannot pretend I do not feel what I feel." Instead of answering with words, Adam cupped Victoria's face in his hands and kissed her. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid of moving too fast. But then Victoria's arms came up around his neck and the kiss deepened, becoming something urgent and real and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Adam rested his forehead against Victoria's. "I love you too," he said hoarsely. "God help me, I have loved you since the moment you said kindness tasted sweeter than food. I have been trying to fight it, trying to tell myself it was too soon, too complicated, but I cannot fight it anymore." "Then do not fight it," Victoria said, her hands framing his face. "Stay with me. Not just until we reach Los Angeles, but after. Build a life with me. Show me what it means to have roots, to have a home, to have someone who chooses me every single day." "I will go wherever you want to go," Adam promised. "If you want to stay in Los Angeles with your family, I will find work there. If you want to go back north, we can do that. If you want to strike out somewhere completely new, I am ready for that too. All I need is you." Victoria laughed through her tears. "What about your brother's ranch? You said you were going to help him." "Andrew will understand," Adam said firmly. "He is the one who told me to fight for you in the first place. He will be disappointed if I let you slip away without even trying." They kissed again, longer this time, and when they finally pulled apart, Adam felt like a different person than he had been just days ago. The rootless cowboy who drifted from job to job had been replaced by a man with purpose, with direction, with someone to build a future for. "We should probably keep riding," Adam said reluctantly. "We still have a long way to go, and I want to get you safely to your family." "Will they understand?" Victoria asked, sudden worry crossing her face. "My father's cousin does not know anything about you. What if he does not approve? What if he thinks I am making a mistake? Then we will convince him otherwise," Adam said with more confidence than he felt. The truth was, he had no idea how Victoria's family would react to her arriving with a cowboy she had known for only a few days, declaring her intention to marry him. But he was willing to fight for her, to prove himself worthy if necessary. They packed up their impromptu picnic and mounted Copper again. But this time, Victoria leaned back against Adam's chest, his arms around her waist feeling natural and right. They rode like that for the rest of the day, occasionally talking but more often just comfortable in each other's presence. That night, they made camp under a sky full of stars, and Adam held Victoria in his arms as they sat by the fire. They talked about their plans, about what kind of life they wanted to build together. Victoria admitted she did not know if she wanted to stay in Los Angeles or move elsewhere. Her father's cousin was someone she had only met once as a child, and she had no idea what kind of welcome awaited her. "What if we started fresh somewhere?" Adam suggested. "Neither north nor south, but somewhere new for both of us. We could find a place of our own, build something from the ground up." "I would like that," Victoria said thoughtfully. but I think I need to at least meet my father's cousin, see what he has to say. My father wanted me to make this connection, and I owe it to his memory to try. But after that, if things do not work out, then yes, let us find our own place." They traveled for 4 more days, falling into an easy rhythm. Each night, they would make camp and talk for hours, learning everything about each other. Victoria told Adam about her dreams of teaching someday, of opening a school where children could learn regardless of their family's ability to pay. Adam talked about his love of horses, his desire to raise them and train them rather than just herding cattle. "Maybe that could be our fresh start," Victoria suggested one evening. "A horse ranch with a school nearby. We could both pursue what we love." The idea took root in Adam's mind, growing more appealing the more he thought about it. A place of their own, where Victoria could teach and he could work with horses. It seemed almost too perfect, too much to hope for. But with Victoria beside him, anything felt possible. On the 5th day, they rode into Los Angeles. The city was larger than San Jose, busier and more chaotic, with buildings crowding close together and people everywhere. Adam could feel Victoria tense in front of him as they navigated the streets, searching for the address her father had given her. They found the house in a respectable neighborhood, a 2-story structure with a well-tended garden and fresh paint. Adam helped Victoria down from Copper, noting how nervous she suddenly seemed. "What if he turns me away?" she whispered. "What if he does not want the burden of his cousin's orphan daughter?" "Then he is a fool," Adam said firmly. "And if he turns you away, we will leave together and never look back. You are not alone anymore, Victoria. Whatever happens here, you have me." Victoria took a deep breath and nodded. Together, they walked up the path to the front door. Adam knocked, and after a moment, a middle-aged woman in a neat dress answered. "Can I help you?" she asked, her eyes moving between Adam and Victoria with curiosity. "I am looking for Charles Orrington," Victoria said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "I am his cousin's daughter, Victoria Olivia." The woman's eyes widened. "Oh my goodness, Victoria, Charles has been worried sick since he received the telegram about your father's death. Please come in, come in." They were ushered into a comfortable parlor, and within minutes Charles Orrington appeared. He was a portly man in his 50s with graying hair and kind eyes. When he saw Victoria, his face creased with emotion. "You look just like your father," he said, his voice thick. "I am so sorry for your loss, my dear. William was a good man." Then his eyes fell on Adam, and his expression grew cautious. "And who is this?" Over the next hour, Victoria explained everything that had happened. Charles listened intently, his expression shifting from concern to approval as Victoria described how Adam had helped her. When she finished, including the part about their feelings for each other, Charles sat back in his chair and studied Adam carefully. "So you wish to marry my young cousin," Charles said. It was not a question. "I do, sir," Adam said, meeting the older man's gaze steadily. "I know it seems sudden, and I know I am not the kind of man you might have chosen for her. But I love Victoria with everything I have, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure she is happy and cared for." Charles was quiet for a long moment, then he turned to Victoria. "Is this what you want, my dear? Truly? You have been through so much. I do not want you making decisions based on gratitude or desperation." "It is not gratitude," Victoria said firmly. "It is love, Uncle Charles. Real, true love. The kind my parents had. The kind I never thought I would find. Adam has shown me kindness and respect from the moment we met. He has asked nothing of me, expected nothing. He has simply been there, steady and true. I do not want to lose that. I do not want to lose him." Charles looked between them, then sighed. "Your father asked me to look after you if anything happened to him. He wanted you to have a good life, to be happy. If this man makes you happy, then I will not stand in your way." He turned to Adam. "But I will hold you to your promises, young man. You had better treat her right." "I will, sir," Adam promised. "You have my word." Charles's stern expression softened. "Well then, I suppose we should start planning a wedding." The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Charles and his wife, Martha, welcomed both Adam and Victoria into their home while preparations were made. Adam found work at a nearby stable, proving his skill with horses and earning the respect of the owner. Victoria helped Martha around the house and began making inquiries about teaching positions in the area. But as the days passed, both Adam and Victoria found themselves drawn back to their earlier conversation about starting fresh. Los Angeles was nice enough, but it was Charles and Martha's city, not theirs. They wanted something of their own. One evening, about 2 weeks after their arrival, Adam and Victoria sat in Charles's garden discussing their future. "I heard about some land for sale near Monterey," Adam said. "Good grazing land with a small house already built. The owner is moving back east and wants to sell quickly. I have been saving money from the stable work, and Andrew sent word that he wants to invest in whatever we decide to do. We could afford it if we were careful." "Monterey," Victoria repeated, her eyes lighting up. "I have heard it is beautiful there. And there would certainly be need for a school in a growing town." "So we do it?" Adam asked. "We buy the land, start our horse ranch, build our life there." "Yes," Victoria said without hesitation. "We do it." They were married 3 weeks later in a simple ceremony attended by Charles, Martha, a few of their friends, and Andrew, Margaret, and their boys who made the trip down for the occasion. Victoria wore a dress that Martha had commissioned for her, simple but elegant white muslin with delicate embroidery. Adam wore a new suit that Andrew had insisted on buying for him, though he felt uncomfortable in it at first. But when Victoria walked down the makeshift aisle in Charles's garden and took his hand, Adam forgot all about his discomfort. All he could see was her, beautiful and radiant, her green eyes shining with love and joy. When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife and Adam kissed his new bride, he felt like the luckiest man alive. The celebration afterward was full of laughter and good wishes. Andrew pulled Adam aside at one point, grinning broadly. "Told you," he said. "Told you that you would know when you met the right woman." "You were right," Adam admitted, "about everything. Does that mean you will actually listen to my advice from now on?" Andrew asked hopefully. "Let us not get carried away," Adam replied, and they both laughed. A week after the wedding, Adam and Victoria said goodbye to Charles and Martha, promising to write often and visit when they could. They rode north together, this time on 2 horses that had been wedding gifts from Andrew. The journey took several days, but neither of them minded. These were the first days of their married life, and they savored every moment. The land near Monterey was everything they had hoped for. Rolling hills covered in grass, with groves of oak and pine trees providing shade. A small but sturdy house stood near a stream, and there was a barn that would be perfect for horses once they made some repairs. The view stretched for miles in every direction, with the ocean visible in the distance on clear days. "It is perfect," Victoria said, standing in front of the house with Adam's arm around her waist. "This is where we will build our life." And build they did. Over the following months and years, Adam and Victoria transformed the property into a thriving horse ranch. Adam proved to have a gift for training horses, and word spread quickly about his skill. People began bringing their horses from miles around for him to work with. Victoria started a small school in the nearby town, teaching children of all backgrounds. She loved the work, and the gratitude of the families whose children she taught filled her with purpose. Their first child, a son they named William after Victoria's father, was born 2 years after they married. Adam was so nervous during Victoria's labor that the midwife finally ordered him outside, where he wore a path in the grass from pacing. But when he finally got to hold his son, tears streaming down his face, he understood what Andrew had meant all those years ago about nothing being more important than family. 2 years later, they had a daughter named Margaret, after Adam's sister-in-law who had shown Victoria such kindness. Then another son, Charles, named for Victoria's uncle. Their house, once small and empty, became filled with laughter and noise and love. Andrew and his family visited often, and Adam made trips up to their ranch several times a year to help with the herd and to maintain the close bond between brothers. Charles and Martha came to stay for weeks at a time, delighting in their role as adopted grandparents. The children grew up surrounded by love and family, never wanting for affection or attention. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Adam and Victoria sat on the porch of their home, watching the sun set over the hills. The children were inside with Andrew and Margaret's family, who had come to celebrate the occasion. From inside the house came the sounds of laughter and children playing, the normal chaos of a large gathering. "Can you believe it has been 10 years?" Victoria asked, her head resting on Adam's shoulder. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday," Adam replied. "Sometimes it feels like forever, in the best possible way." "Do you ever regret it?" Victoria asked. "Giving up your freedom, your wandering ways for this life?" Adam turned to look at his wife, still as beautiful to him now as she had been that day in San Jose when he first saw her. Maybe more so, because now her beauty was colored by years of shared experiences, of love deepened by time and trials. "Not for one single second," he said firmly. "You gave me something I did not even know I was missing. You gave me a home, a purpose, a reason to build instead of just drift. You gave me everything, Victoria." "You gave me everything too," Victoria said, tears shimmering in her eyes. "When I was at my lowest, when I had nothing and no one, you showed me kindness. You showed me that there was still good in the world, still reasons to hope. And then you showed me what real love looks like, not the refined and proper version I was raised to expect, but something raw and honest and true." They kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Inside, one of the children called for them, wanting to show them something. Victoria laughed and stood, offering Adam her hand to pull him up. "Come on," she said. "Our family is waiting." Adam took her hand and let her pull him to his feet, but before they went inside, he stopped her for one more moment. "Victoria." "Yes, kindness tastes sweeter than food," he quoted, remembering her words from that first day. "You were right about that, but do you know what tastes even sweeter?" "What?" "Love," Adam said simply. "Love built on kindness, nurtured by respect and strengthened by time. That is the sweetest thing of all." Victoria smiled, that same beautiful smile that had captured his heart 10 years ago and never let go. "Yes," she agreed. "Yes, it is." They went inside together, hand in hand, to rejoin their family. The house was full of warmth and laughter, full of the life they had built together from that single act of kindness so many years ago. Outside, the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, bearing silent witness to a love story that had started with nothing more than a loaf of bread and a generous heart. The years continued to pass, marked by the usual joys and sorrows of life. There were hard times when the horse business was slow, when drought made the grass sparse and money tight. There were illnesses and injuries, the normal tribulations of raising children and running a ranch. But through it all, Adam and Victoria faced everything together, their love the foundation on which everything else was built. Their children grew into fine young people. William inherited his father's way with horses and his mother's intelligence, eventually taking over much of the ranch operations. Margaret proved to be a natural teacher like her mother, helping with the school and eventually starting another one in a neighboring town. Charles showed a talent for business and began helping his father negotiate contracts for the horses they trained and sold. When Adam and Victoria were in their 50s, they welcomed their first grandchild, William's daughter. Holding that tiny baby in his arms, Adam was transported back to that day in San Jose, to the moment when he had offered half his bread to a hungry stranger. If someone had told him then that such a simple act would lead to all of this, to the rich and full life he had lived, he would not have believed it. But looking around at his family, at the home he and Victoria had built, at the legacy of love and kindness they were passing on to the next generation, Adam understood something profound. Every life was made up of moments, of choices made or not made. The choice to stop, to see another person's need, to offer help even when it cost something. Those choices rippled outward in ways you could never predict, creating consequences that lasted far beyond the original action. He had given Victoria bread when she was hungry, and she had given him a life worth living. It was a fair trade, he thought, though he had certainly gotten the better end of the deal. Andrew came to visit one last time when Adam was 70 years old. His older brother was slowing down, the years taking their toll, but his eyes were still sharp and his mind still keen. They sat together on the porch, just as they had done countless times over the decades, watching the horses graze in the pasture. "Do you remember what I told you that day at my ranch?" Andrew asked. "When you first brought Victoria there, you told me a lot of things," Adam replied with a smile. "I told you that when you met the right woman, you would understand what it meant to have something worth coming home to," Andrew said. "I told you that there was nothing in the world better than that feeling." "I remember," Adam said, "and you were right." "I know," Andrew said smugly, then his expression softened. "You did good, brother. You built something real here, something that will last long after we are both gone." "We built it together," Adam corrected. "Victoria and I, with help from you and Margaret and everyone else who believed in us." "I could not have done it alone." "Maybe not," Andrew agreed. "But you were the one who saw a hungry woman on the street and decided to help her instead of walking past like everyone else. That was all you, Adam. That was your choice, and it changed everything." They sat in comfortable silence after that. Two brothers who had shared a lifetime of experiences, now nearing the end of their road. When Andrew finally left to return home, the embrace they shared was long and tight, both knowing without saying that it would likely be the last time they saw each other. Andrew passed away peacefully in his sleep 3 months later. Adam grieved deeply for his brother, but he took comfort in knowing that Andrew had lived a good life, full of love and purpose. He took comfort, too, in the fact that Andrew had been there for all the important moments, had witnessed the family Adam built and approved of the man he had become. Victoria remained by Adam's side through his grief, just as she had been by his side through everything else. They had weathered decades together now, their love only deepening with time. Her hair was silver now, her face lined with age, but to Adam, she was as beautiful as ever. More so, perhaps, because every line represented a memory, a moment they had shared. On their 50th wedding anniversary, their children and grandchildren gathered for a massive celebration. The house that had once seemed so small was bursting at the seams with family. There were now 6 grandchildren, ranging in age from 25 to 10, and 2 great-grandchildren. The noise was tremendous, the chaos absolute, and Adam loved every moment of it. That evening, after most of the guests had left and the children had been put to bed, Adam and Victoria once again found themselves on the porch, watching the stars. It had become their ritual over the years, these quiet moments together at the end of the day. 50 years, Victoria marveled. How did we get to be so old? Speak for yourself, Adam teased. I am still young and spry. Victoria laughed, that same musical sound that had delighted him for half a century. Oh yes, I saw how spry you were today, needing Charles to help you up from your chair. That was strategic, Adam insisted. I was giving him a chance to feel useful. They laughed together, comfortable in the way only people who have shared a lifetime can be. After a while, Victoria grew serious. Adam, I want to thank you, she said. For what? For everything. For seeing me that day in San Jose. For offering me bread when you were hungry yourself. For treating me with kindness and respect when you had no reason to. For loving me, for building this life with me, for giving me a family and a home and 50 years of happiness. Her voice broke slightly. For showing me that kindness really does taste sweeter than food, and that love tastes sweeter still. Adam took Victoria's hand, their fingers intertwining as they had done thousands of times before. You do not need to thank me. Loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life. You took a rootless cowboy and gave him a reason to stay in one place. You took my simple act of kindness and turned it into something beautiful and lasting. If anyone should be grateful, it is me. We can both be grateful, Victoria suggested. Grateful for each other, for our family, for all of this. She gestured to encompass the ranch, the house, the life they had built. Not everyone gets to have what we have, Adam. Not everyone finds their person, their place, their purpose. We have been blessed beyond measure. Yes, Adam agreed simply. We have. They sat together as the night deepened around them, two people who had started with nothing but kindness and built an empire of love. Their story had begun in dust and desperation, with hunger and hardship and uncertainty. But through choice and chance, through kindness offered and received, through love freely given, they had created something extraordinary. The ranch would continue after they were gone, passed down to children and grandchildren who would remember the story of how it all began. The school Victoria had started would educate generations of children, spreading knowledge and opportunity through the community. The horses Adam had trained would be remembered for their quality and temperament, their bloodlines sought after by ranchers throughout California. But more than any of that, the legacy Adam and Victoria would leave was one of kindness and love. Their children had grown up watching their parents treat each other with respect and affection. They had seen how small acts of generosity could change lives. They had learned that true wealth was not measured in money, but in relationships, in family, in the knowledge that you had made the world a little better by being in it. As Adam and Victoria finally rose to go inside, Adam paused one last time to look out over the land they had tended for so many years. The moon was rising, casting silver light over the hills and pastures. Somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnied. From inside the house came the sound of a baby crying, quickly soothed by its mother's voice. Life continuing. Life renewing. The cycle that had started with an act of kindness in a dusty street in San Jose so many years ago, carrying forward into the future. Adam wrapped his arm around Victoria's waist and led her inside, closing the door behind them on another day in a life well lived. The stars continued their slow wheel overhead, bearing witness to a love story that had defied odds and expectations, proving that sometimes the sweetest things in life come from the simplest gestures of human kindness. And if anyone had asked Adam Xavier, in those final years of his life, whether he would change anything about the path he had walked, he would have answered without hesitation, not a single thing. Every moment, every choice, every challenge had led him to exactly where he was supposed to be, with exactly who he was supposed to be with. That was the true meaning of kindness tasting sweeter than food. It was not about the bread itself, or even the immediate relief it provided. It was about the connection forged between two souls, the recognition of shared humanity, the willingness to give when you had little, and the transformation that followed when kindness was met with gratitude and love. Victoria had been right that first day, but she had only known half the truth. Kindness did taste sweeter than food, but love, real and true and lasting love, was the sweetest taste of all. It nourished in ways that no bread ever could, sustaining through hardship, enriching in joy, and creating something that would outlast any physical hunger. As Adam and Victoria lived out their remaining years together, surrounded by the family and life they had built, they both knew that they had been part of something rare and precious. Their story would be told and retold, passed down through generations as an example of how a single moment of compassion could change everything. And in the end, when their time came to leave this world behind, they left it together as they had lived, hand in hand, with no regrets and no unfinished business. They had loved fully, lived well, and left behind a legacy that would echo through time. The ranch still stands today, though it has changed hands many times over the years. If you visit Monterey and ask about the old Xavier place, someone might tell you the story of Adam and Victoria, of how they built their fortune on kindness and love. They might show you the weathered sign that still hangs over the barn, hand-carved by Adam himself, bearing a simple motto: kindness first. It was a reminder to themselves and to everyone who came after that the greatest fortunes are not built on gold or land or power. They are built on the connections between people, on small acts of generosity, on love freely given and gratefully received. Adam Xavier had given his bread to a hungry woman, and she had said that kindness tasted sweeter than food. From that simple exchange, a love story had bloomed that lasted half a century and created ripples that are still felt today. It is a reminder that we never know how our actions might change the course of history, not just for ourselves but for everyone our lives touch. And perhaps that is the real lesson of Adam and Victoria's story, that kindness matters, that love transforms, that the choices we make in moments of decision, when we choose compassion over indifference, generosity over selfishness, can create something beautiful and lasting that far exceeds anything we might imagine in that moment. The bread Adam shared was consumed within hours, but the love it sparked lasted a lifetime. And that, in the end, made all the difference.